Look, in business today, there's this unwritten playbook, right? And it's what separates the companies that survive from the ones that inevitably fail. The old rules, they're completely broken. We're going to dig into why, in a world that now demands absolute transparency, this new playbook is the only one that actually matters.
Yeah, and system architect Vitaly Gonchar just nails it. The old way of doing business, built on gut feelings and backroom secrecy, it's obsolete. As he says, transparency isn't a matter of ethics anymore. It's a baseline technical requirement. It's not a nice-to-have, it's the cost of entry now.
So this gets us to the absolute core of the conflict, the shift from a craft business, one that literally can't function without the owner, to a systemic one. It's the difference between a business built on one person's charm and a business built on a solid process. A systemic business has value baked right into its DNA, which is what makes it sellable, scalable, and, this is the key, bankable.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to tear apart 3 really dangerous, widely held myths about secrecy, contractors, and quality. And then we'll lay out the new rules for building a company that's actually built to last. Okay, let's dive right in. Myth number 1, the idea that a complex, secretive corporate structure gives you some kind of strategic edge. In today's world, that's not just wrong, it's an active threat to your money. So why is secrecy such a train wreck now? Well, it's because the system got way, way smarter. Banks, regulators, they now use automated filters to find your POM, your place of effective management. They don't give a damn about your registered mailing address. They follow the data to see where the real decisions are being made. It's not a legal theory, it's a technical fact. And when the system can't figure you out, when your structure's all murky, it creates this thing with a very real name, the cost of ambiguity. And this isn't some abstract risk. It's a real, quantifiable number that triggers very specific, very painful technical failures. And believe me, the consequences are not just some slap on the wrist. We are talking about real pain here. Daily fines that just keep adding up, getting completely kicked off of corporate registries, an immediate loss of your ability to get loans, and the kill shot, your bank account's completely frozen. Secrecy is no longer a strategy, it's a self-destruct button. This whole transparency thing, it pops up everywhere. Which brings us right to myth number 2. This is the so-called hack that a lot of entrepreneurs think is so clever, hiring a bunch of independent contractors instead of employees to cut down on payroll costs. This is an illusion, and man, it can backfire spectacularly. Okay, here's the absolute truth, and you really need to hear this. The tax authorities do not care what you call someone in a contract. They don't read the title. They read the facts of the actual day-to-day relationship. That piece of paper is worthless if their work life looks exactly like an employee's. The tax authorities, they use this simple, factual checklist. It's not complicated. First question, who's providing the tools? If you're giving them a company laptop with your company software on it, well, the system just puts a big fat check mark in the employee column. All right, next up on their checklist, who's on the hook financially? Is the worker risking their own money if a project goes south? If the answer is no and all the risk is on you, the company, that's another big check mark for employee. A real contractor has to have some skin in the game. And here's a big one. Can they actually farm out the work to someone else? A true independent contractor is running a business, which means they can hire help. If your contractor can't do that, then their independence is basically a fantasy. It's a legal fiction. So what happens when you get this wrong? It's not just a little whoopsie. It is systemic margin erosion. You get slammed with bills for back taxes, plus massive penalties, and it completely vaporizes any savings you thought you had. This isn't bad luck. It's a failure of basic operational hygiene. All right, now for our third and final myth. And honestly, this is the one that trips up so many people because it feels so right, but it's just so wrong. It's the belief that if you just build a perfect product, success is guaranteed. You have to hear the story of the Singer sewing machine. It's the perfect example. Isaac Singer built a machine that was an engineering masterpiece. It was so well made, it would basically last forever. The result? By the 1880s, everyone who wanted one had one. Sales flatlined, and the company was nearly destroyed by its own incredible quality. And that right there shows you everything. It's all about the business model. Singer's model was one and done, a single transaction. Compare that to companies like Ford or Mercedes. They understood they weren't just selling a car. They were selling you entry into a whole ecosystem of parts, service, and upgrades. For them, that first sale is just the beginning of a long relationship. So this is the playbook for survival today. This is the architecture. It's about recurring revenue, not one-time sales. It's about creating a deep ecosystem where the product needs service or add-ons. And critically, it's about owning that customer relationship long after the initial purchase. In this new world, a great product is just the price of admission. It's not how you win the game. Okay, so we've torn down these myths. How do we put it all back together? What's the antidote? The answer is to stop thinking like a craftsman and start building a truly systemic, bankable architecture from the very first day. Let me give you one last, super practical example of this kind of systemic thinking. You have to understand your business identifiers as different layers. You've got your basic business number, that's just your ID. But then you have other layers, like a sales tax number, that get automatically switched on based on how much money you're making. Confusing these two levels is an incredibly common and very expensive mistake.
And you hear that theme again, right? The system doesn't care what you were trying to do. It reads the cold, hard facts. Once your revenue hits a certain number, boom, new obligations are triggered automatically, whether you knew about them or not. And saying, "I didn't know," is a direct path to an audit.
So what's the big takeaway here? You have to start treating your operational hygiene, your boring back office stuff, not as a cost, but as your #1 competitive advantage. Design your accounting like you know an auditor is coming tomorrow. Build compliance costs right into your pricing model. Simply put, build the kind of business that is so clean and transparent, you'd jump at the chance to buy it yourself. And this all comes down to one single powerful question you have to ask yourself. Take a really hard look at what you're building day in and day out and ask, are you building a business, a system with real, sellable value that can exist without you? Or are you just building yourself a better, more stressful job? The answer to that question will define everything.